host broadcaster of the G20 South Africa 2025.
Now, improving Africa's air connectivity is essential for unlocking tourism growth across the continent. Less than 1 in 5 airline routes within Africa are direct, forcing many travellers to transit through Europe or to go through the Middle East to get back to Africa. I mean, according to a full professor of tourism geography at Vaal University of Technology, Professor Kaitano Dube, this limits investment, it raises travel costs, and it restricts intra-African tourism opportunities. As South Africa leads the G20 presidency, one of the group's top tourism priorities is advancing seamless air travel through modernised air service agreements. Well, we've got Professor Dube with us to chat about this topic. One very close to my heart, Professor Dube. I'm glad that we're addressing it, and it's good to have you on the programme.
Good morning, Leanne, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
How did it happen that we have such few direct connections in Africa trying to get from one country to another? What's the legacy behind this?
Okay, so I think as Africa, we have been late adopters in terms of the aviation, but this is in sharp contrast. But if you look at airlines such as South African Airways, they have got a very long history. And given that, I think Africa's development trajectory has been lagging as a result of it having been colonized and not having enough adequate infrastructure, particularly the airports. We don't have enough infrastructure and also the necessary capital in order for us to actually purchase those particular airlines. You also have to look at the demand in terms of travel. It has been minimal, to say the least, for the better part, particularly if you look at the 1980s. With the continent having been embroiled either in war or civil war, it was difficult for it to actually be part and parcel of the aviation market. But things have changed, and there is need to reflect that change as Africa seeks to trade within itself and also participate in tourism as a catalyst for tourism development. So that history is based on the wars, both from colonial era and also the issues that has to do with the instability that has been in parts of Africa.
Yeah.
But that picture has since changed.
Indeed, and so that's the kind of history, and it sets a picture for us, and hence we find out why we're in this situation. But if we can just carry on very quickly on that trajectory, if we can get a sense of the scale of the problem, and particularly looking at which regions within Africa are actually least connected, and perhaps highlight some bright spots where we're seeing that it is improving in certain areas.
Okay, so if you look at the entire continent, it is not connected. You have got the Southern Africa, I think, where we're very lucky in many respects, because you can actually move within the SADC region thanks to the hub that South Africa has provided. If you look at OR Tambo, it plays a critical role in terms of enhancing that particular connectivity. You can also look at the emergence of another hub. If you look at what is happening in Rwanda, there is also a hub. Connect that to Kenya and Ethiopia. Then you have got the north parts of Africa that also are connected from a northern perspective. But what we do not see is in many respects, is the interlinkage between the north and the south. For example, if a person wants to travel, particularly say to Morocco, I was just checking, you only have connecting flights. But if you look at Morocco, you look at Egypt, these are some of the places that are most visited. So you therefore need to have some leverage where those regions are directly connected, so that you then start to realize some of the benefits of the open market to ensure that people and business and industry is connected. But for you to be able to do this, it was I think, slightly better before COVID-19. We saw quite a number of airlines going under. I think colleagues and travelers would appreciate, particularly in South Africa, we lost quite a number of airlines, which disrupted, I think, the picture that we had seen where Africa was coming to be connected. South African Airways, which was the almost not the national flag carrier, but a continental flag carrier, has now since been replaced by Ethiopian Airways. Yeah. We see the troubles that Kenyan Airways KQ, which then can also adversely affect the growth that we have seen. But we are hoping that the developments that we see in Rwanda are going to assist in the picture.
Well, we certainly do hope that. And I mean, you brought up Morocco because that's the one sort of destination that, again, I mean, I've looked at that very sort of actively. And I mean, you have to go via, whether it be, the Mediterranean, Middle Eastern countries and then come back. And it's a logistical nightmare and incredibly expensive. And that's the reality, is that the expense goes there. The fact that we don't have direct routes, what do we attribute it to? Do we attribute it to cost? Is it political? Is it a commercial problem? Some people, and perhaps maybe it's a short-sighted view, and please correct me if I'm wrong, saying that that there's high operational costs and limited passenger demand. That's some reasons that are given, but perhaps you can elaborate more. What is the problem?
So I think it's a combination of factors. So even if you look at the regions where I was saying you've got a bit of better connectivity, particularly in Southern Africa, the cost of travel is seemingly very high due to I think if you look at the amount that it costs a person, if you look at the taxes that are actually charged, which makes it very difficult for airlines also to survive. We have had quite a number of airlines not seeing the light of the day because of those operational challenges. But we also have, in terms of, on top of what you have indicated, political connections and also market viability. We also have insistent problems that are associated with us not having adequate skills. I think those that are familiar with the aviation sector, you'll understand just the challenge that we have with the air navigation, the technologists, which then affects the safety and makes it not as lucrative for people to actually come to Africa here for their lives. Yeah. So there are quite a number of things that we need to address. It's skills, it's security, it's also issues that has to do with political alignment and making sure that we have a market that the airline industry can survive.
Yeah, and it's so important. I mean, it's a vow that I have personally taken, that every year I want to visit a new African country. I've managed to do that for the last couple of years, and they have exceeded every expectation. I've just got back from Namibia, and I had the best time, and it was just so wonderful. And I echo your sentiments within traveling around Southern Africa. That is much easier. My final question to you, I mean, I could carry on for much longer, but we don't have time. The G20, obviously, we know that this is linked to it all. Do we have any leverage here? We've got all of these leaders, we've got everything, the world is focusing in on it. Is there some form of assistance that the G20 can push for more direct flights to improve tourism and trade on the continent?
So I think the G20 provides a necessary and very lucrative platform for the African region to sort of try and align and also deal with some of the incessant problems that we see in the aviation sector. Being the aviation sector relies not only on the tourism industry, but you have got quite a number of government players that come into the fore. You have got your DICO, if you're looking at South Africa, you've got your transport department and your tourism department. What we can then use G20 is to try and leverage, try to bring consolidation of policies, make it easy for air permits to be actually issued out, which can assist in terms of leveraging that. But we also need to look at the skills that South Africa can also leverage funding that is available from some of these rich countries to fund infrastructure, to fund some of the skills gap that we see. There's generally a growing demand for aviation skills, and we are failing to compete toe-to-toe with some of the regions such as the Middle East, which can then affect our air connectivity as a region. And G20 can catalytic growth in this regard.
Absolutely, Prof. I've got to leave it there, unfortunately, but interesting conversation and a topic that I do hope is tackled quite a bit at the G20. So, Prof, thank you again for your time and for being with us on the program. That was Professor Kaitano Dube. He's a full professor of tourism geography at Vaal University of Technology, speaking about the cost of travel within Africa.